Hey, yo, what's good? This is Eddie Diaz, and you are tuned into FreedStyles interviews. Um, the FreedStyle platform, it's all about supporting and promoting the independent artists. So the artist that I have with me today for my first interview is a very dope producer. I've been up on his project since 2018. Um, really dope. And, I am excited and you guys can introduce to him if you don't know him. If you do know him, then hopefully you're going to learn a little something new about him today. And his name is Chade Summerset. So Chaden,
You're
thanks,
what
thanks for
up?
taking this time, bro.
Anytime, bro. You're the OG. You already know.
No doubt. No, it's funny, man, because we go and it's really a hip hop thing, man. The whole respect thing, and Rec One is part of the Apartment 5B crew, which
Hmm.
is the podcast that I'm a member of. So he's my OG in that crew, but he's also your OG as well.
Yeah.
That kind of gets me into how I first discovered your music. Rec One hit us up one day and was like, "Yo, um, my brother Chaden, he's dropping this project. He phrased it, framed it as a collaborative project between you both. So that was my first time hearing, and that was Homegrown Volume One.
Hmm.
Um, so I have two questions about that just to kind of kick this off. Since that
Absolutely.
was
Let's
so that was kind of my genesis of discovering your music. Number one, um, what what led you to kind of do this project together with Rec One? And number two, what made you go back and put out the pure version?
Okay. So, we had spoken about it briefly the other day, and prior to when I went officially, like what I would say, professional on the major streaming platforms in 2018, I have probably at least more than 10 albums, EPs, and a billion singles out there that people do have. And two of those projects were projects with Rec One. And on the Homegrown Volume One album, so that's nothing new for us to get together. We did an album called Tequila and Lemonade, and then we did an album called Reasonable Clout. Um, you know, quite a few years back, but if you listen to at least the Reasonable Clout, it's up to par with kind of stuff that I'm doing now. And if you listen to the Tequila and Lemonade, it's really a precursor for the kind of sounds that he and I both are doing. So when I was working on that project, it was only really fitting for me. For me, it wasn't like this big first album that's coming out. To the outside looking in, it seems that way, but it just, for me, it felt natural. It was the right amount of years or about right amount of time had gone by where he and I were overdue for a collab again. You know what I
Gotcha.
mean? And the beats that I was making were just like, oh yeah, he's big bro's got a cut and scratch on these. Like this will be sick.
Yeah, no
And,
doubt. And for me, obviously, my relationship at that point with Rec One, having been involved with the podcast, so I was checking it out because all right, this is Rec One, but really that project displayed you, right? So you were doing the production, he was doing the scratches and cuts.
yep,
Um, so then the pure version was just the production with no scratches, no cuts, right?
correct,
Got it,
correct.
got it. Yeah, man.
And yeah,
And
yep.
yeah, so then you had Homegrown Volume Two following that, and yo, I'll tell you that first track, the introductions, uh, 22-minute track. Um,
Yeah.
You know, we're gonna get into it, but you got a couple of those. You got a couple of those, you know, long tracks, and
Yeah,
it's
floating around.
you know, I would you know, for someone who I'm explaining it to, I'll say it's like you know, a classic jazz record where you have many movements to it. Um, you know, you think of the jazz masters, how you know they have these really long tracks, right? Because you had jazz musicians who put out albums with only 4 tracks on it, but those 4 tracks were
Mhm.
epic, you
Yep.
know. But this one was that to me, um, you know, and it took me a minute to kind of move on from that first track. It took a lot to digest. Is it just I like to explain it, but you know, is it just you know, you're moving along, you're creating this as one uh, piece of music, um, but are you intentionally making it that long, or is it just coming that way naturally?
When I sit down to do something like introductions on HG2 or like Uzaru on, I think 1990 I really sit down with the pure intention to do a track like that. And for the most part, when I do sit down to do one of those long tracks, it is because I've really gotten bored of myself or bored of what I've been hearing. So it's a reset. It's when I do one of those tracks, it's when it's time to throw myself a challenge and just get reintegrated with myself and what I love and push the boundaries a little bit. So I think a lot of people get too used to the general format of, you know, you can go 16 hook, 16 faded out, or 16 hook, 16 hook, faded out, however you want to do it. But being an artist, especially as a producer, but I want to be respected as an artist, not just the producer. Though, you know, I love working with rappers, and that's super dope. A dope beat never sounds as dope as with somebody rapping on it. But to be respected as an artist within the instrumental sphere as well, I think that sometimes pushing the boundaries is a great thing. And I make so much music that making those long beats is something that I look forward to as a reset when I know that it's time for myself to kind of like raise the bar mentally or for the world myself. Because I don't really see too many people doing stuff like that. And when I sit down to do it, it really is one long beat. It's not multiple beats and then like DJ faded together. I do have DJ skills, and I think that those technical skills that I've learned from doing live shows over the years help me to be able to move within the keys and move within the structure and format to keep it rocking. But
No,
I
absolutely, absolutely. But it's definitely impressive as a listener. You know, you see a track that's 22 minutes, and it could seem a little overwhelming, but you know, it's just, you know, if you sit down and listen, you know, it really is. It's naturally moving along. Is not stagnant, right? So
right.
you have a lot of hip hop producers where, you know, it's the loops. You know, you got the loops.
Yep.
You know, you
Yep.
got the drum beats. You might have a little break or a little change up where, you know, the hook or chorus supposed to be
Exactly.
maybe a little something different in at the end. But that's why I compared this to like a jazz, you know, a jazz artist, you know, creating a work, because it is moving in that manner. There's a build up, you know. There's a, a point where you kind of reach the peak, the crescendo, so to speak, and then you kind of, you know, bringing it back down,
Hmm.
um, and then, you know, move along with the rest of the project. So yeah, very impressive.
Thank you
So
very
one
much.
thing, no, you're welcome, man. One thing you mentioned was you know, you working with rappers, and admittedly, I'm not as familiar with your outside production. Um, what are some of the artists that you have worked with outside of your own instrumental projects?
Yeah, sure. A couple people. Really, honestly, I stick to my close inner circle, and I really don't fuck with too many people. And that's just because I've been burned in the past on some super epic shit. But I work with Rec One. I work with my little bro Zealbreak. Right now, I'm working with a dope rapper out here in Ithaca, New York, where I'm currently located, named Anthony Cannon, and we have a whole album of demos sitting around. It just needs to get to the final edits process on his end. My whole side of it is done, and his side of it is done on dope beats, but his engineer just has to do the final mix and master. But for the most part, you know, I don't mess with too many people. My OG Fresh Daily, we have, he's got a whole zip of like 50 Chade beats he's working, sifting through right now. And so this year we could see quite a few collab albums potentially, but I don't think that people should ever get too attached to the concept of it. But if anything, I'm really like a one producer, one rapper album type guy. I'd love to work with certain rappers if they're really dope and they can hold up their weight, then I would love to just produce the entire album.
Yeah. Have you worked with any vocalists, singers, or other type of vocalists that aren't rappers?
Some, yeah, mostly people from my hometown. For the most part, I really simply work with people that I've known since growing up, and since I do everything independently too, that helps a lot. I don't really try to fall into the politics of the rap game and all the nonsense. It's really great to work with my close friends. Like shout out Mia Fiorito. She's actually the one who you hear saying Chaden, Chaden, Chaden.
Yes, and that was my next question. So you were reading my mind there. I think it's dope. You have any dope producer has a tag. Whether they choose to use it all the time or just sparingly, but I think it's really dope. I think her voice goes very well with what you do, your production style. So that's a very dope pairing. Now, is she strictly doing the vocals on that aspect, or does she have any other talent as far as singing or whatnot?
She's amazing. I think there was a time where she was writing references for like big names like Beyonce and Rihanna, like type stuff
Wow.
out in California. But we grew up together when I was, I think, a senior. I think she might be 2 years younger than me, but I first found her. She had done an album with one of my younger brother Jerome's best friends, Tyler Gherkin. Shout out Gherkin 845. They were in a band called History Repeats, and I got their demo. It's like 5 songs, and it blew my mind. This girl's voice, and I fell in love with her voice, and we've been best friends ever since. And anytime I do an album, I hit her up for some new tags. We keep in constant contact. But she sings, dude. She's got the voice of an angel, and we've been recording together for years. It's just whenever she's ready to push that button, that's kind of where I'm always at. I'm always in a energy reserve tank where it's just whenever it's go time, we can make it happen. But everything is in motion at all times.
Yeah, yeah. That's incredibly dope. So I wanted to ask you because I kind of touched on you have so many different projects, but so many different series of projects, right? So you got the homegrown series. You mentioned the 1990-91,
Yep.
the Otaku Supply, which volume 1 through 3, and upcoming volume 4, which
Yes,
we'll
sir.
get into. Cozy Wan Kenobi 1 and 2, and Godfidence. So what is the difference between the different series? Is there a change of approach for you when you're going into it? Are you saying, okay, I'm trying to do something different? I know at least for the 1990-91, there's kind of a clear intent, to kind of make it almost like a video game, right? Even the album cover is the Game Boy, um, and
Yes, yeah.
so there's a little bit of a theme there. So as far as the other projects and the other series, how do you differentiate?
I guess I really make so much work that and for the years, this is my 11th year producing. So I've produced so much bodies of work. What I've gotten used to at this point is to answer the question in the first layer, when I hit a snag, or not even a snag, how do I say? Like I'll hit that one beat or that one sound, and then I know, okay, I'm officially in album mode. You know what I mean? Like this hits
Gotcha.
different. And then from there on, since I create so much, it's counterproductive to be working on many things at a time, because if you're in like whatever kind of program and you hit file open recent, you know what I mean?
Right.
So if I start working outside of my computer's capacity, then I can't get back to the project files, and once it's gone, it's gone. So what I kind of got used to doing was setting myself down to do an album. Once I get to that point, I
I gotcha.
I
That's a
commit.
great analogy. That's definitely a great analogy there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not an analogy. That's just facts.
Oh, that's it. Literally the project file. I gotcha.
Correct. Literally, if I make so many beats that I can only, when you hit file open recent, there's only the most recent things you open. So things get out of hand. If you, then I'm trying to find something old. So once I find and I latch onto a sound that I'm like, okay, that sounds like such and such album, the natural progression, then it's really easy for my brain to lock it in, and I'll just make that entire album right then and there. And sometimes I can go, I'll make the album in a weekend. Sometimes it'll be a week, 2 weeks. But for the most part, I try to get the entire idea of that concept of the one beat out immediately, because it's just of my soul. And there are key differences. I think the Otaku Supply is a lot more what people would describe in quotations as lo-fi. But then you can get to Otaku Supply 3, and it's completely headbangers and dark jazz stuff. So really, the limitations can be really loose, or they can be very specific. But I think like on the Otaku Supply, that's when you're mixing hip hop beats with anime culture, with video game culture. Because a
Right.
lot of things I hear are really dumbed down, diluted. And I can tell that these people never watched that show in their life, or they never played that game. They're just sucking the game. They're just sucking the game for clout. And then you got your homegrown, which is going to be your more hip hoppy, jazzy beats, but just purity level. That's when Rec 1 comes in, and we're working on HG3 right now, Homegrown Volume 3.
Yo,
And
dope, dope.
yeah, he's going to be on it. Got some head snappers already lined up for that. That's probably what's going to be next after this. And then 1990-91, like you said, is kind of like standalone, and I was showing some other sides of myself. And, there's a lot of stuff to come. I think you kind of have to wait and allow people to catch up, because you just found out about me in 2018, but I've been doing this for 11 years.
Right.
So it kind of has to be a slow build and gradual shift. So every once in a while, I'll try some new styles out, but to me, they're really old styles. And I really want to, show off my trap production and my EDM production and this and that. But I have to kind of get people to come along on that journey with me, and not just abruptly just shatter their minds with, oh man, like he's changed so much. Realistically, like that's how they're going to see it. But for me, I've been on all these other waves.
No, for sure, for sure. And every artist is going to evolve. One of my favorite hip hop producers, Black Milk. You
Ooh,
listen to his
yeah.
early stuff, and he had a whole album that was like electronic, so electronic type beats. Um, then his more recent stuff feels more dark and more experimental. So yeah, all producers are going to have a point where they're going to try to evolve. So one
Eddie,
thing you,
real quick before we move on, just I have one articulation just to cap off what I'm trying to say real quick. Do you mind?
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I bet. So to in a long-winded way to answer your question, the differences and the reason for the differences between the albums and the running titles is that when I do switch things up, even from like an otaku supply to a homegrown, someone could be a fan of one or the other, but it will always let the fans know that this exists for you and you can really easily categorize and get directly to what you yourself are into. Because people might be a fan of trap Chade, and I got friends who have been listening to my trap beats for years, like in my inner circle, you know, and they're like, put that out, put that out, put that out. And maybe they don't want to hear that. And maybe people want to hear Otaku Supply, or maybe people want this or that. But putting it out the way I put it in the saga format allows for the growth of the saga, but also it lets people know, you know, if you just find me at Otaku Supply Volume 4, nobody just puts out the first album and it's called Volume 4. It's Volume 4 for a reason. So if you
Right.
find this and you love it, you got, okay, let me go find OSV 1, 2, 3. So that's why I do it like that.
Absolutely, and I love that. I think it's great, even with MCs. One MC who has been really prolific, RJ Payne. I don't love everything he puts out, but one series he did recently in 2020 was the Beautiful Pain series, and that was a series of albums or EPs that I could really latch onto. I liked his content on
Mm-hmm.
those. He also has a series called If Cocaine Could Talk, which maybe is not in the lane that I'm generally interested to, but it's definitely, to your point. I think it's great when artists do that. It shows their depth, but also gives fans different things, and lets them know what to expect, as you said.
Exactly.
I want to get into something that you touched on, right? The anime and video game references, which I'll be honest, I catch some of them, but definitely not all. You know, I me as a I have a lot of interests, from hip hop to comics to I watch anime. I recently um, got into the old kung fu flicks with my brothers, but my interest may go in waves, so I may just totally binge on some anime stuff and then kind of go off and focus on something else for a while. So like I said, I catch some of the anime stuff, but not all of it. You know, I like your use of the samples. I think they always tend to fit the theme of the song and the feel of the instrumental that you're crafting. Do you find the anime sample first and craft the beat around it, or is it the other way around, or do you kind of mix it up?
So, man, that's awesome. To your first point, that you're like just getting into that culture and just finding that's awesome. And as that series, what I really beat my head against the wall is making a product that, regardless of if you like anime or manga or certain video games or not, or some people might be into video games and might get those references but not watch any anime or whatever, but some people might just like beats but not be into anime or manga or video games at all. Is to find that sweet spot to where even if you never fucked with one side of it, you can find a dope beat. And even if you never were into beats before, it's really cool to hear your favorite character like say something over, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah, absolutely.
that's the best. And I really appreciate what you said, that you feel like it generally, that the scenes that I do pick match. And that goes even so much further because half of it is in Japanese. So that
Or
that means a lot. But I think Japanese is one of the most beautiful languages on the planet, and I'm self-studied in it. And a little rusty right now, but I got to get back on it. But it means a lot because I beat my head against the wall, making sure that the scene matches the beat. That's very important, and I think that's why that Otaku Supply has that longevity that it does. It's not just make the beat slap on some scene. I gotta dig deep, and I only ever use a scene that I've actually watched that actually resonates with me. To answer your second question, it's mostly reversed. Like I said earlier, I'll make a beat and then I know. So for like an Otaku Supply, I get into that bag, I make that first beat, and I know, oh man, this sounds like OSV4. Let me make the whole OSV4. And then I go back after I make the body of the work for it. But I'm starting to think of the scenes and whatnot in advance. But all those scenes and whatnot, I put on at the end of it because I'm a music guy first. And I think
gotcha.
that's the best way to make sure that the product is um, is an album and not a gimmick, if that makes any sense.
No, that makes completely sense. Focus on, the main part of your craft, and
Right.
then the samples will be complementary to it, if
Correct.
if that's what I understand, right? And I could definitely see fans of your work who maybe may not be as familiar with the animes, but it's almost like with Wu-Tang when they came out was using all
True.
the kung fu samples. Then you
Exactly.
had fans going out and saying, "All right, what was that from? What was this from?"
Was
Going
that
back
karate
and
movie?
right, going back and finding those movies and watching those, which is what I did with my brother. So I could definitely see that with your work. Um, so who are your influences? Um, and this could be hip hop, but it doesn't have to be restricted to hip hop. Who are your influences that have made you who you are as a producer?
Absolutely. As a producer, as a kid, uh, artists I looked up to, The Alchemist, super, super dope. Pharrell, super, super dope, both on production and as rapping, singing, NERD, long before. Cause I'm happy. Like that
Right.
shit boggles my mind when everyone was like, yo, do you know this guy Pharrell? Blah, blah, blah. The song Happy. I'm like, yo, y'all don't even know what this dude does. Um, Jay-Z, I was just watching the Fade to Black movie. I have that on DVD. I haven't dusted that off in a while, but I was looking for some inspiration tonight.
Right.
Timbaland, so many people. Ninth Wonder, you can see a direct correlation to Ninth Wonder.
Absolutely.
Arab music. I mean, there's tons. It would be impossible for me to really get into them all. But as far as people go, I think that my grandparents and my aunt are really my biggest inspiration and have been the biggest supporters in my life. And sometimes as far as support as a producer, it doesn't have to be about the music. It's just that these are the people who are like the first people that I talked to about these things, and they said, hey, if that's what you want to do, go do that. We'll support you. It's very hard as you're first trying to come up for in any endeavor, but arts, a lot of people, I mean, I dropped out of grad school to be here. I dropped out of grad school and I was running crazy 3 a days, going to school all day, then homework all night. Then it would be like 11 p.m. or midnight, and then I'll work on beats for 4 or 5 or 6 or 8 hours and get up or not wake up because I'm already up and go to school all over again and do the same day again. And when I finally hit that mode of like, this is what I really want to do, those guys, my aunt and my grandparents, were really there and supportive and, gave me that headspace to know I can go ahead and do this without feeling guilty or anybody hates me. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like not a
I know what
failure.
you mean. And it's great that you had that support because honestly, you could always go back to school, but you're not always going to have that moment if you feel like,
Correct.
this is my opportunity, this is my chance. You
Hmm.
know, you always kind of think, what if you don't make that move, if you don't strike while the iron is hot,
Right.
if that makes sense, right?
Right. They took those shackles off mentally when I was able to tell them and talk to them about it, and they love music, and I don't think they ever expected it. I talked to my grandpa maybe a few weeks ago, and I told him like, man, I just did like 4 million streams on Spotify and Apple Music, and he was just like, honestly, I don't know what to say. Like that's crazy. And like that was as far as that conversation went. I don't think they really understand streaming because they're older and whatnot,
Right.
but they just gave me that pure love without any expectations of where I would go. Because it's not like they've been hearing my stuff. They knew like I've been touring and I've been playing shows in Canada and doing all this stuff, but they had no idea probably the level that I would actually like try to take this to. But still
Yeah,
they let
that's
me
dope.
do it anyway, you know.
Yo, man, that's amazing to have that kind of support.
Yeah.
So, we talk about your past. Let's talk about what you got coming up. And I'm blessed that you let me hear some of it. And we touched on it. Otaku Supply Volume 4.
Mhm.
Man, it truly blew me away. And you know, as I said, I've heard everything from homegrown up to Godfidence. Um, I've seen your progression, and but this is and I tend to say this, but this might be my favorite thing from you that you've done so far. Um,
Oh, that's dope.
so starting off with the epic Evolutions B. 14-minute long track, man. That thing had my mind blown. So why don't you talk about this project? We could talk about that track in particular,
Sure.
and let's get into this project because there's a lot to it to uncover.
Absolutely. So, I mean, really, as far as the evolutions B and the evolutions A, it just comes, uh, like I said earlier, it's just that natural point. If I get bored of myself or I need to go for, something outside of myself a little bit to show myself I still got it, I make music for the people of the world, and I'm not selfish with it. With my talent, I make things that people are going to be able to vibe to. But through that process, sometimes you can get a little bit down on yourself, like, man, like I haven't leveled up in a while. So when I do one of those tracks, it comes from there when I sit down to do it, and then it blows into whatever it grows and becomes. And I love those tracks, man. I really just want to make something that smacks people in the face, grabs them right out. And most people, especially in the streaming era, they're gonna just they're gonna be like, oh, that new Chade album is out. They're gonna hit play on the first track and then maybe turn on their video game, or maybe they're driving in their car, but they're not seeing the fact that it's one track. So it catches people off guard. I remember Rec One, he had no fucking idea it was one track until fucking it used to be the song was like 25 minutes originally. I cut it down because I
Wow.
that natural ending of it. Yeah, the original song is like 25 minutes, no lie. Never lie. And he hit me up like, bro, fuck you, man. This is crazy. I didn't even know it was the first song. But that's the exact feeling that I want people to have. And then you cross that threshold into the actual album and then let it just smack you in the face a bit more.
Word,
That's just
word.
warm.
And I'm just now seeing the irony of the titles. The evolutions A and B. Obviously there's the Pokemon reference there, right?
Yeah,
But then it's literally the evolution of the otaku supply volumes, because
exactly.
listening to the first three volumes, this definitely takes it up a notch. That's putting it lightly. The sounds and the textures. I mean, what you're doing on there, is it's you referenced prior, or early on in Otaku Supply Volume 1 and 2, fans were referring to it as lo-fi. This is definitely not lo-fi.
Nope.
These are bangers, as certified absolute bangers. Um, Certainly the second side, and so we didn't get to talk about that. So you got the silver side and the gold side, right? Which
Yep,
is
yep.
which is also Pokemon reference, right? I did catch that, right? Because you had
Yeah,
Pokemon Gold and Silver,
correct.
in the Game Boy games and whatnot.
Mhm.
No doubt.
Exactly. Yeah, the so originally when I was a kid, that was the second generation of Pokemon games, which I think are the best ever. And it was Pokemon Silver and Pokemon Gold. But then down the line, I can't remember exactly which year or whatever, they re-released them for, I think it was like the DS. Like, original was Game Boy Color, but down the line when the DS came out, they redid them as Pokemon Soul Silver and Pokemon Heart Gold. So I went Sword Silver with my samurai shit, and Saiyan Gold with my Dragon Ball Super Saiyan stuff. So
Word. All right.
it's built in. It's culturally built in. But even if you don't know that kind of stuff, it's just good music.
No, absolutely, absolutely good music, and I love that. They stand on their own, but they also tie in together.
Hmm.
Each side has a different vibe to it.
Yep.
Um, and I think I mentioned when we talked yesterday, there was the one track on the gold side that maybe could have fit on the silver side. Could have went
Vaporeon
either way.
Blue.
Yeah, that Vaporeon blue. But it still fit well in the flow. It still fit well in the flow. No doubt. But definitely an amazing listen. I have to spend more time with this project, to be honest.
It's thick. It's dense, and the way that I've done it this time, I've never dropped two albums on the same day, and I'm determined to do that because nobody does that in the instrumental sphere. But I've been looking at it as one big playlist, like what I sent to you. So I'm actually listening through it every day from the silver side straight through to the gold side. And even though nobody else is going to even have that ability unless you made a playlist and like stack them on top of each other, it's very important to me to make it cohesive to me like that, that everything flows together and works. Because once it hits streaming, I don't, or once it hits professional services, I'm out of control of how people consume it, what they do with it for the most part. So, it's going to get broken down, split up. These playlist curators will like this and this, and the Apple Music playlist curators will like this and that, but the Spotify people will like this and that. And it's really sad the way that music gets moved in this day and age, but that's why I'm
Right.
super thankful for people like you who really are of the culture and who love to listen to albums. You know what I mean? So I can't big up you enough for taking the time to listen to my unreleased project, and like having a conversation like this high level about it is really, really inspiring to me to even just push harder and harder and harder myself.
No doubt, no doubt. And so this project obviously, as a listener, I hear it and I see it's very ambitious. is there anything else that you kind of had, um, back of your mind, something else really ambitious that you would like to do, that you kind of haven't taken a stab at yet?
There's really nothing. Honestly, I'm really I'm still playing possum with my power levels. So what's gonna happen down the line is that I mean I have albums from like 2017, 2018 that I haven't put out yet and that are just aging well with time and they cross boundaries from boom bap all the way to, like I was saying earlier, trap and EDM. So there's nothing really that I want to do that I haven't done already. I'm just really waiting for everybody to catch up and catch pace because some of these bangers wouldn't be any good to put out with 10 people listening to me. Those 10 people would love it undoubtedly, but I wanted it to have a higher reach, not on an egotistical side, but because if I have even just 100 people, then that's 100 more people who can tell people like, listen to this song, for the people's sake. It really sucks as an artist, especially in the internet landscape, to drop something into a black hole. You know what I mean?
Right. And
So
do you ever feel pressure, to make anything, or are you always on your own time? Because I noticed, especially 2020, the past couple years, I've seen an increase in how artists release projects. It's always multiple albums per year, but it seems that 2020 kind of reached the peak where I saw one album drop a project a month.
I
Um,
think the simple reality, I'm going to answer this one backwards. So to answer the second question, the simple reality is that COVID hit. So there's two factors that sit in. A is boredom on behalf of the artist, and
gotcha.
B is financial gain because there's no touring, there's no this, there's no that anymore. So man, like I gotta go get it. That's kind of what I've seen from my perspective, watching over the game. That's why I think that 2020 you see this huge peak of people, dropping excessive amounts of albums. But I've always been of the mindset that how can you be a professional rapper, professional singer, professional songwriter, professional producer, and just drop one album a year, if that, one album every 2, 3 years? I understand, but like if it's of you, then why don't you just do what you do? If you're a teacher, you go to school every morning, Monday through Friday. If you're at this, you go to work every Monday to Friday. You know what I mean?
I
So
know what you mean, and I think as a as an old head, so to speak, I remember the era where it was one album every, if that.
right,
Sometimes you wouldn't get an album until another 2 years or more, and I think it's just the way the industry was. It
yeah,
was run by the labels. They had you on a schedule. They kind of wanted to stretch the album out as long as possible. Put out the singles. Maybe have the artist go on tour and all that.
for
Uh,
sure,
these days are different, and not only with COVID, but streaming made it different. I think more artists have moved away from major label platform,
hmm,
maybe going independent with some major distribution is the route. But I see more and more artists being able to put out more projects, even if it's not all solo projects, but collaborating with different artists that maybe their label, if they were on a major label, would not allow them to.
yeah.
So in a way, I think hip hop has benefited, and music in general. Um, so for sure, it's just curious for me, and thanks for putting your perspective on that.
Yeah, yeah.
So the last thing I want to ask you, while we're wrapping this up, and I've done a couple videos on hip hop memories, and I've talked to different independent artists and people involved in the hip hop culture. So I want to ask you, what is one of your earliest and or most memorable hip hop moments?
Oh, done. I have two. The first ever one, the very first, this all ties in, man. Sometimes the universe is so, you know, I just float within the synchronicities, But the very first rap album that I ever bought with my own money was Jay-Z's The Black Album. Now, I've been listening to him for years and years, but that was the first time I ever bought an album myself. You know what I mean?
Makes sense. Yes,
Now,
sir.
I bought this album and I'll never forget this. My brother, my younger brother, got in trouble for who knows what. I don't remember that. But while he was in trouble, I went upstairs and like in my room and I put my headphones on and I wrote down every single lyric in this notebook and I was analyzing it, but with the curse words and all that. And my mom found my notebook and she took it from me and she tore it up, like she threw it out. And because I was writing curses and whatnot, you know what I mean?
Word.
Now down the line, whenever it happened, same year, my mom surprised me. She apologized to me. She got tickets to the I Declare War concert. It was when Jay-Z had this concert, I believe in New Jersey, and he brought Nas out and they dapped it up. And I'll never forget this moment of them
Yo, that's
just
crazy.
standing out looking at the crowd. I'm talking like for 30 minutes, bro. Just they didn't say shit, the band didn't play shit, just people are clapping, screaming, going ape. And like I know my culture. So like I was
Yeah,
in
that's
that moment.
that's an epic hip hop moment, man. That's something that
Yeah,
you will never ever forget that. I mean, that's
ever. She
historic.
made it
That's
up to
history
me.
books, man.
Yeah, she made it up to me. Like, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. And that was kind of like my, okay, go ahead. Because it's kind of interesting with like hip hop parents because you want better for your kids and you don't want them to grow up cursing and screaming and saying all kind of crazy shit, but it's still the music you like yourself, and I'm sure whatever struggle she had, she probably just freaked out as a mom, like, oh my God, he's writing fuck words or.
Word.
But then it was like, oh, okay, like I'll fuck with Jay-Z too. Like I'm gonna make it up with him. And she really took me to that, just me and my mom's. And the second biggest moment, hmm. What was the original question again? Because I have one
Uh,
more big moment. I'm trying to
yeah,
connect.
yeah. No, the original question was, what is one of your oldest or most memorable hip hop moments?
Oof. Yeah, I mean that definitely takes the cake by far. I've got plenty. I've seen Jay-Z maybe 5 to 7 times in concert. I've seen Kanye many times. I've seen lots and lots of rap concerts before COVID. Like that's my jam. But hip hop memories to be in that building and witness Jay-Z and Nas dap and hug it out and clear that out, that was the biggest thing. And I decided right then and there, I think as a kid, like this is it for me. And when I'm at a concert of that caliber, or even still to this day, you'll see me and while everybody's partying, like I'm like deadpan, like I'm not in my head, but I'm taking it all in. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm
Yes,
looking
sir.
at the lights and I'm looking at the DJ and what is Jay-Z doing? And what are they doing? What is everybody doing? How's this mixing? I think it started right there, that obsession with this craft and this appreciation for the culture. Most importantly, that was a cultural moment that spanned time and bad blood. I saw that shit get rectified in one moment and seeing that moment enveloped in love. You know what I mean? It wasn't like nobody was like, fuck Jay-Z or fuck Nas because of you know, at the time it was like that. You know what I
Right.
mean? But
Right.
to see the love from the moment, that was the moment when I realized there's not a single person in here hating on this, and it just felt a, you know, a million or a few 100,000 or however many people fit in the arena, all love, everybody dapping, everyone lighting up, everyone having their beer, everyone just cheering for 30 minutes straight. That
Yeah,
changed.
absolutely. I mean, if you're a witness to history like that, I mean, if you let your I don't know, your preference or fandom, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
get in the way
Right.
of that, then you have the wrong intention. I mean, you're bearing witness to an epic moment. You just gotta soak it in, like you said. So, man, that's definitely amazing. Thank you for sharing. So, Jaden, thanks for taking this time to take this interview with me and FreedStyles. So, before I let you go, why don't you tell everyone, how they could find your music? What's your preference? Because I know all these streamings, they have, different uh, different ways that they pay the artists. So, whatever your preference is, how they could best find you, and what would you like to tell them?
No doubt. I'm gonna hit him with a good New York year. And this is Chade Summerset from Ithaca, New York right now, but from ways of Beacon, New York, 845, hometown hero. And you can find me at AKA Chaden on Twitter, at AKA period Chaden, that's CHADEN on Instagram. Chade Summerset on any major music platform. I'm streaming wherever you find dope music at, wherever you listen to your Drizzies or your Rihannas, wherever you listen to your Alchemists, or wherever you listen to your Pharrells. I'm out there. SamuraiSyndicate.com is where you can find me as well. I'm a purely independent artist, but I'm making splashes with the big boys now, and I would love for everybody to check out my music on your own time. Whenever you get a chance, it's there. Good music will always be there for you.
And I could definitely vouch for that, yo. Thanks again. I hope you all enjoyed the interview. And, if you like this content, check out more on my site, freedstyles.com. As
Yes,
I
sir.
said, this is a site, for independent artists, promoting and lifting up those independent artists and hip hop culture. All right, y'all. Peace.
Absolutely.